The ambassador to China, Guy Saint-Jacques, is one of the signatories of that open letter to President Xi Jinping, and he joins us now from Montreal by Skype. And sir, thank you for joining us. In this letter, you warn that the detention of Canadians will leave China worse off. Do you think that Xi Jinping is receptive to your message?
Well, I do hope so, and I think that's the main message there, because this is not only a problem that involves Canada and China, but it's something that could happen to any other country. And here is a group of people who love China, who have worked on China most of their life in many cases. You have their great experts, people who have played a very useful role in explaining what's happening in China to the world. And of course, everyone is concerned about what could happen to them in the future. So I hope that the Chinese leadership will pay attention to this letter.
Yeah, a lot of concern about the fate of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. And what about the Canadian sentenced to death after a court convicted him of drug smuggling? Are you also calling for the release of Robert Schellenberg?
Well, in that case, I think, that the initial sentence of 15 years that was ended to Mr. Schellenberg back in October might have been justified. He claims that he is innocent, but what is peculiar about this case is the speed at which the hearing of the appeal took place. And when it took place, the three judges didn't want to hear about the supposedly new evidence that the procurators wanted to table. They said, put this in the file. And after it concluded, it took them about 67 or 68 minutes to turn the initial sentence into a death sentence. And even Chinese lawyers have said that they were surprised by the speed of this hearing and the way it was conducted. So for me, clearly, there was political interference, and it was additional pressure that China wanted to put on Canada to return Mrs. Meng.
And meanwhile, we've been reporting that the Canadian government says that the United States will soon make a formal request for the extradition of the CFO of Huawei. Do you fear that when that happens, there could be more detentions, more retaliation from China?
Well, if we look at the playbook of the Chinese, and I've seen this in the past when they went through a similar case that was less publicized back in 2014, I suspect they will want to apply further pressure on Canada. But I hope that the strategy pursued by the Canadian government to rally international support will make the Chinese leadership think twice, because China remains concerned about its international image, despite what they say, like what Mrs. Hua, the spokesperson at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Beijing, said today about the signatories of the letter. I think that they are taking note of what's happening, and I hope that they will tone down their messages. And I also hope that we will be able soon to sit face-to-face with China to try to resolve this issue.
Right. So you've been hopeful that China is concerned about its international stature and international reputation. But in the meantime, a personal question for you. Given the current political climate and the ongoing detentions, would you travel to China right now?
Well, I think in my case, I would delay travels, because I know what can happen. And if you look especially at the case of Mr. Kovrig, what the Chinese are doing contravenes the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. This convention says that you are covered by diplomatic immunity while you work in a country, but there is also this notion of residual diplomatic immunity, whereby a country cannot question you on what you have done while you were a diplomat. And so in my case, of course, China could say that I was involved in all kinds of activities that threaten the national security. So I think that I will probably abstain for a little while before going back to China.
Guy Saint-Jacques, sir, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the program, and take care.